Welcome to the August 3rd meeting of the Yardley Borough Council. We are in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can begin this evening with our roll call.
Ms. Thompson, present. Mr. Burton.
Present.
Mr. Kleiner.
Present.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Ms. Siegel Morris.
Here.
Mr. Brio.
Here.
And Mr. McCain.
No, for Mr. McCann, I believe he may join late this evening. Also joined by Mayor Harding with 6 members of council present. We have a quorum. Before we continue, we are going to rearrange our agenda a little bit this evening and bump the motion regarding our police hires up to the front. Chief, you are on.
Just try to pull up the agenda item here. Sir, I have one agenda item at this point. We are in need of part-time police officers. The Yardley Borough Police Department is served by both full and part-time staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We reviewed applications and we were lucky enough to identify 2 very qualified candidates. The applicants were interviewed by the police department first and then later by the Public Safety Committee. The panels who interviewed them were all satisfied with the candidates' knowledge, skills, backgrounds, and abilities. In this point where hiring for police is very difficult, we were able to identify applicants that were both college graduates, both local products, and both had applicable experience in emergency services. I would respectfully ask that the Yardley Borough Council pass an agenda this evening to hire both Heather Carnavale and Andrew Nagel as part-time police officers pending certification from the Pennsylvania Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Yes. I move that Yardley Borough extend a conditional offer to hire Heather Carnival and Andrew Nagel as part-time police officers pending certification from the Pennsylvania Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission.
Second.
Motion was made by Ms. Siegel Morris, seconded by Mr. Ross. Is there any discussion from council? Any from the public?
Yes.
Come on.
I just would like to question whether the Civil Service Commission, I don't know if they were involved, but I still have a problem with the fact that one of our police officers is on that commission. Other than that, I'm really happy that we finally have a woman.
Part-time hires are done through Chief Civil Service Commission, only oversees the full-time police officers.
Oh, okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries 6-0. And now we will do our swearing in.
Heather Carnavale, please come up first. Please bring your family if you'd like to assist with the swearing.
Anybody want to come up? All right, so for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Chris Harding. I'm mayor here in Yardley Borough, and as we always do, we just want to take a moment and recognize what this means tonight, not only for Heather and Andrew, but also for the Yardley Borough Police Department, the Yardley Borough community. As we always say, we do not take lightly here in Yardley Borough the commitment you're about to make, and we thank you for that. In light of everything that is going on in our world today, it even reminds us how much more important these positions are, and the trust we have in you and the duties and responsibilities for those that you're going to take on. And we do respect that, appreciate that, and that respect and appreciation obviously extends to the families and the supporters that are here today. Comes is myself, the police department, the council, and the entire Yardley Borough community. So you ready to get sworn in? All right, good. So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
uphold the laws and ordinances
uphold the laws and ordinances
of the Borough of Yardley,
of the Borough of Yardley,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of a non-civil service police officer
of a non-civil service police officer
of the Borough of Yardley
of the Borough of Yardley
with fidelity
with fidelity
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
and to the best of my judgment and
Congratulations, welcome to Yardley Borough Police Department. One of the things we've, a tradition the chief has started that I think is fantastic. We, obviously, you're going to get your badge tonight. Is there someone from your family or two people that would like to put your badge on this evening? All right, there you go. So you can just do that. So that's it. You got it. You got it. Take as many pictures you want. Just turn it off.
Did come up in the interview, she had a big family.
I think her 3 minutes is up there.
Make an exception for this one.
You ready, Jim? All right.
All right, congratulations.
Andrew Nagel, please come forward with your family.
Andrew, we'll stand with you if you'd like. For sure.
There we go. So again, Andrew, not to waste all those words on just Heather, of course, we respect, appreciate this commitment you're going to make to Yardley Borough this evening also, and we welcome you. So you ready to get this done?
Yes.
All right, good. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
uphold the laws and ordinances
uphold the laws and ordinances
of the Borough of Yardley,
of the Borough of Yardley,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of a non-civil service police officer
of a non-civil service police officer
of the Borough of Yardley
of the Borough of Yardley
with fidelity
with fidelity
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations, welcome to Yardley Borough Police Department. Your badge in the seat. All right, great, there you go. I'll get out of the way.
It's all right, you missed a little.
Yeah, you're perfect. Congratulations. You guys are students, some of them here for the press, take your pictures, so get closer. We're gonna get a picture back here. You got it? All right, congratulations.
Tracy, rearrange. I guess, yeah, just backing the table forward.
Take that back to the camera really quick, and I'll get this. Hang on one second. On the wire. Thank you.
got sworn in, yeah. And we have now a female part-time police officer. So nobody, oh, it's 'cause I'm police. Nothing's gonna be bad.
Yeah, I remember too. I was like, what is this?
Drop again.
Give it something that's, whether it's like,
Carrie, I have it on there, so you can.
place that treats, whatever, that'll help. Did that for my youngest.
We'll just wait a moment to resume for Mayor and Chief Kelly to come back.
Sure.
I knew it was tomorrow.
Wait, or he's.
He's okay. You can, thank you.
Yep.
So be up
No
here
worries.
just a moment, so no need to wait.
All right, we will resume with our regular meeting. Our next agenda item is community announcements. This is an opportunity for any member of council or the public to share an item for the public good, such as upcoming events. Anything from council? Same offer to the public?
I have a question from council that is related to a community announcement. I don't want to make the announcement, but my question is, this is, I guess, a solicitor question, which is that based on the new rules of the agenda being locked into place, if an event comes after that, it can't go on the agenda. Does that mean that we can also bring up the event without it being on the agenda to discuss or to vote, or does that just mean it can't be on the official agenda?
So that act actually hasn't taken effect as of today, but you could add items to the agenda in the event of an emergency is my understanding of the circumstances. Beyond that, I haven't reviewed it enough to answer your question further, but I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is in reference to a letter that we all got from Wes regarding this event happening, the Mini Music Festival on the 21st of August, so we can't vote on it until the 17th because of the timing. And I guess I just would love to just be able to provide the people putting that event on, if it has been all worked out through the borough in terms of Wes as the chief, the logistics, but if council feels that we would be supportive of that, I know I would. If we could just maybe verbally give the go-ahead that we would be, and then officially vote on it on the 17th, perhaps we do that.
You can vote tonight,
Sure, I mean, I think that was probably our plan anyway, and I imagine there's no objection from council now that it just be handled administratively and can appear on agenda at the next meeting.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear everything you said. Could you just repeat that, please?
Sure, we will, as you suggested, it can just be handled administratively by Wes and Paula, and we'll make sure that it's on the next agenda for approval.
Okay. So everyone is on board, you know. It's unfortunate that it makes us have to, I mean, I'm really not thinking about this event so much, I know this one's gone through, but just for the future, we want to be able to have a system where we can, obviously, not having to approve something 4 days before it happens.
Right, agreed.
I'll just leave it at that, that sounds good.
Agreed. We're a little far off community announcements here, but I think we maybe could more broadly look at how much of event approvals can be done on the administrative side rather than needing to be approved by council one by one. And while the 24-hour rule for agendas might be somewhat restrictive, I think you're already cutting it close if you need something approved that immediately. Ms. Taylor.
Speaking of not hearing, what event are you talking about?
Let's, is Yeah, Mr. Applebaum, do you want to, I know that it falls under your cap, so if you want to give a summary of that event that is coming.
Hi, David Applebaum, President of Experience Yardley. We submitted a permit for a mini music festival under the pavilion based on encouragement from many people, including the borough, and I was able to arrange for 2 musical acts for the day of August 21st, which would dovetail into Music on Main. So between the Farmers Market and a mini music festival and Music on Main, we are helping to fill the mandate of helping the community's businesses by supplying customers. And I'm really excited, as well as I believe Wes and Paula and the chief are, because it's true that the pavilion is underutilized, and I've made a commitment, along with Experience Yardley, to produce more events on the pavilion. So that will be August 21st, working title, Mini Music Festival under the pavilion, and I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the acts, but the acts are the Philadelphia Saxophone Orchestra, which is not as weird as you might think, very entertaining. I went to a rehearsal, and a group called Crying Carolina. They are both Yardley talent, and I'm quite happy and proud to bring it to our town. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any other items that would fall under community announcements?
Same guy. I'm facing council, but the message is to everyone. For everybody's, just the support that we've received for the comeback of Music on Main, the event with Peter V's Blues Train, by the way, a Billboard charted talent who lives in Yardley, and it was phenomenally successful. No incidents, as I said to the chief, and I'm looking forward for the next 5 events. Remember, that's every Saturday, 6 to 8, running through September 4th. Chief, just again, I want to thank Officer Gillock for his for reaching out and making sure that we were safe and had everything we needed. I really appreciated his okay signs as he drove by several times. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for community announcements? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. Not yet. This is the portion of the meeting during which members of the public may address council regarding items that do not appear on the agenda. If you wish to address council regarding an item that does appear on the agenda, you will be given the opportunity to do so during council's deliberation of that particular business item. Members of the public are asked to please come to the front table so that the microphone may pick up your voice for our viewers at home, and please state your name and address for the record. With that, I'm going to again acknowledge Mr. Applebaum for public comment.
Same guy. David Applebaum, 39 Reese Drive, President of Experience Yardley. I am someone who's interested in uniting people and not dividing people. And I understand that there has been a issue, and for a long time, with parking. But this is not a criticism or an attack. This is me reaching out as president of Experience Yardley to, again, fulfill our mandate to increase economic impact for our businesses, because a thriving business community equals a thriving town, where we can present great events and placemaking projects that benefit the community at large. Very quickly, I wanted to mention that I have been working off and on for a couple years with a gentleman named Frank Lyons. He is the owner of the Continental. In 2019, June 2019, according to this report, he started trying to get support for additional parking down in the section of the, off of Afton and the canal. And I don't want to give the details because this is his plan. What I wanted to say is that as he experienced Yardley, I am moving forward and at a fast pace with Mr. Lyons to see what the interest is of this council in coming up with ideas for additional parking and allowing him and myself, if necessary, to reach out for funding, whether it's sponsorships and grants. I wanted to mention very quickly, and I'll finish, I found, and this is just for your benefit, there was a Bucks County local news article that was published in 2013, and I know these figures are not accurate any longer because of some of the construction that's happened over the last few years, but allegedly there's 738 parking spaces available in the downtown area, and of that, 60 approximately are borough-owned, the Buttonwood Park spaces and the Borough Hall spaces. So where I'm going with this is that to get the information that I've been using for this plan and for entertaining this idea of moving forward and finding support financially, is that the only place where there's a map of parking places is the Yardley Community Center's website, which in fact Visit Bucks County links to. The problem is that that article, which is the only one I could find, and the map are over 8 years old. So I hope that maybe we could try to develop a new parking map that we can use to distribute and also put online, and especially on our Yardley Borough website, which if it's there, I couldn't find it. I apologize if it is, but I didn't see it. And so I'd be more than willing to help out with that, but a map that's 8 years old is a little outdated. Thank you for your consideration. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to report back to council sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Applebaum. I am going to make a few responses on parking, and then I'll give the rest of council the opportunity to do so as well. So I am aware, as probably many people are, there was some good old-fashioned discussion on Facebook about parking over the past week or so. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds of what happened there, but we do have a rather large parking lot across the street that is privately owned. We often, as members of council and probably borough staff, get inquiries about that lot, and it sort of begins and ends with the fact that it is a private lot. And there's not a whole lot the council can do about that. In regards to parking generally, we very often hear that Yardley has a parking problem. And the response that I've come to like over the years is that a parking problem is when you have lots of people coming to your town because it's a great place to be. Something I think is important to recognize about Yardley is that there are places to park. They're just not always right on the doorstep of the business you're trying to get to. And when we go out in New Hope, we go out in Bristol, we go out in Newtown, it's pretty common to walk a block, 2, even 3 to get where you're going. But in Yardley, that is often seen as an unacceptable solution. So while we take seriously the requests that we need to look for parking opportunities, because it is limited along Main Street, we are also aware as council that it is not as if you're circling around the block for 25 minutes the way you might in Center City looking for a spot. Final points I want to hit. The idea about a parking map on the website is a good one. We are in the process of overhauling our website, so I think we could absolutely put together a simple graphic that shows folks where some of these options are. Last but not least, the proposal from Mr. Lyons. I have spoken with him about it, not recently. I know this is something that's been in the works for a while. And as with many, many things in Yardley, it comes down to funding. If council is presented with a source of funding where we can get $1 million to explore this project and we don't have a match, great, we'll do it. But I think we all know that's not the reality. And to invest that sort of money to purchase a lot and pave it, that's going to be a difficult thing for council to take on. So we're certainly interested, you know, if there are folks out there who are willing to do the legwork of putting together those grants and those contributions. I would encourage you, but I would also encourage you to be realistic about the financial ask of the borough. We know that our budget does not have a lot of room in it for these sorts of capital projects. And I think, you know, I know you've seen our budget before. I know that Mr. Lyons has seen our budget before.
I wasn't making a proposal tonight, I was only.
I know. I just wanted to lay out there before you take back and work on this, what our constraints would be.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Anyone else from council wants to add?
John and I were talking, and, you know, we were, famous last words, because this has been an issue that's plagued the borough forever, and it's not going to be solved in a couple conversations for sure. But John and I were talking about community economic development as maybe being a forum to work with you and Frank to at least talk about these things and maybe explore some of the art of the possible around funding. I'll admit I don't have a lot of expertise or knowledge about what's available, but maybe if we start looking into it, we don't know until we spend the time. I'm sure others have done it in the past, but to me, I think what you're looking for, David, is not to be doing this in isolation, right? I think what David's saying is we're not really willing to commit to anything right now, but maybe through community. John, you share the
Yeah,
committee.
we met with Frank
Yeah.
probably 3 months ago.
Yeah.
David was there, and, you know, he went through the proposal. We talked about challenges, and, you know, we just said, we'll leave the door open and have more conversations. So I think it's certainly a great place, community economic development, to kind of talk about this and invite Mr. Lyons again and have another conversation and, you know, and have that larger piece and kind of look through it. There's grants and other things available. Certainly, you know, I think people will be more amenable to it, but you're right, the expense is a challenge. So I think David said it very
Yeah.
nicely.
Yuri, were you going to say something?
Yeah, thanks. It's hard to see my face, so I'm about to say something, but you guys did a good job of picking up on that. I want to thank the people involved, Frank Lyons, Experience Yardley, and also Matt and John for showing interest, because this is an issue that got me interested in council way back when, before I was on council the first time, and there was action on the part of the council, and I'd like it to encourage us to think about doing this again, especially now that it's coming together, because I think that it requires multiple people working together to find a solution. It's not necessarily always a cost issue, and there are lots of ways to address the cost, because it's in the interest of everybody to get this working. And so what I think we can do, for example, way back when we talked about doing things like perhaps it could provide liability protection, perhaps it could provide plowing, perhaps it could assist with the cost of paving, and there may be ways to come up with money that incentivize businesses to make spots available when they're not using them. Where businesses get stuck is things like liability and cost of plowing. So you know, there are things we can do, but I think the way to get there is for us to have a task force where we're on council, or essentially it could just be you know, the economic development committee doing it, but to actually have that task be something that is reported on each month, and so that there's actually motion on that, and so that we really take seriously a creative solution. Yes, we're not going to build a multi-story parking garage. I think that's, I don't think anyone wants that, but I think there are practical, simple solutions, and we had made some headway several years ago, and I think that more could be done with the energy put into it. So that's what I encourage us to do. I don't know if that's something we want to officially do as a task force, or just kind of, you know, informally say that's community or economic development, and I'm happy to assist with that as well, because I think that's just a good thing for the town.
All right. I think the suggestion that this is handled through community and economic development is probably a good one. So if, John, you as the chair want to, do what you need to do, talk to Frank, talk to the other community partners in this, and report back to council as things move, I think that would be appropriate. All right, do we have other public comment this evening? I saw it back in the corner a while ago.
Good evening, everyone. Albert Salini, 18 Van Horn Avenue, here in the borough. The purpose of my comments here is really twofold. First, I want to thank the council and the borough engineer for staying on top of the ML7 violation, stormwater violation. So it's a highly technical activity, which I understood when I received the plan that you shared with us, Ms. Clenny. So thank you for staying on top of that. The other thing I just want to do is just request, is it possible for the borough engineer to possibly have a meeting to try to explain that complex plan with all of its calculations to the residents in a separate form, not tonight, obviously, but a separate call, perhaps during the week or another time.
Yeah, we can do another Zoom call with Russ, that's fine, like we did with every
That would be very helpful. Right. And then lastly, I just want to encourage the council and the engineer, stay on this, because this is not a simple or one quick fix. So that's my urging, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor.
Susan Taylor, 35 Brook Overland. I do want to talk about Facebook, bad and good. I was so deeply saddened by the Facebook interchange that went on over the weekend, I guess it was. There's no good to be had from what happened. It's bad for the town, it's bad for everyone. And we just need to get beyond that and have people actually talk to each other, where people are usually civil. The good thing about Facebook is that the Yardley Historical Association has started Facebook posts under the theme of seeing Yardley through its advertisements. And we're taking our collection of old Yardley newses, photographing ads of businesses to illustrate how the town has changed over time and who is here, who's not, who's still here. So if you're on Facebook and want to see something good, go to the Yardley Historical Association Facebook page. And in 1990, at main course, which was right here where Rosa Bianca is today, you could get your entire New Year's Eve meal, shrimp cocktail to chocolate mousse for dessert for mere $16 a person.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. One more thing I do want to mention on the topic of Facebook. While I think many people are aware of this, I just do want to state it for the record that the Facebook group that is called Yardley Borough PA is in fact in no official way affiliated with Yardley Borough. It is run by a private resident. I know that not all of council even belongs to it because I myself was banned from it. So take that for what it is worth. But when these issues boil up, I do like to reiterate, because we have been contacted in the past about the content there, and it is not a page that is run by the borough. Tom, I believe you had comments.
The parking wars have begun again. This past weekend, they culminated on social media, where people were actually talking about boycotting certain Yardley businesses. As you discussed, it's getting really ugly. The owner of the Yardley Borough Shopping Center is absolutely entitled to do whatever he wants with his private property. His parking attendant is just doing his job. He's a very nice person. This latest incident goes far beyond the parking wars. It's just one symptom of the ongoing zoning and code enforcement problem that consistently favors and protects certain businesses and residents and targets others, especially women. There would be no parking problem if the borough followed its own ordinances. There is a reason the planning commission reviews ordinances and zoning changes. It's to avoid exactly what is happening in Yardley right now. They understand the big picture, they have experience and have been here longer than you. Instead, the zoning officer and council continue to approve special exemptions to select businesses who are part of the Good Old Boy Network. For example, on February 16th, council approved a certificate of appropriateness number 2024 to Scott Burney, one of the vault owners. The certificate was for 19 South Main Street for an addition. That's the building right next to the Yardley Grove Shopping Center parking lot. The zoning officer granted a special exemption on the required amount of parking spaces and waived something like 37 spaces. The chair of HARB questioned the decision at the time, and the solicitor said zoning was not in the purview of HARB. I was at that meeting. I specifically remember that you discussed how there was not such a problem with parking. The borough manager considered revising the ordinances to accommodate more businesses. I remember those discussions. On April 26th, the zoning hearing board granted a parking variance for the vault's owners for a sushi restaurant to open in the Yardley Borough Shopping Center. I was at that meeting when they all said there was no parking problem in Yardley. A few years ago, the vault got a special exception on Main Street to add an addition that still causes problems with parking in the back lot. The one business in the area, La La Lobster, that was already operating as a restaurant that always had outdoor dining, is being harassed by officials and threatened by this good old boy cabal that are all in business together. So it's not a parking problem. The root cause is that there's a culture of cronyism, corruption, and harassment in Yardley Borough, and a long history of arbitrary and capricious zoning and code enforcement, where good old boys are under the protection of Yardley Borough officials. How else do you explain the tap room being allowed to operate for over 2 years in open violation of our ordinances without fines or notices? Meanwhile, a new woman-owned business that employs special needs workers and who actually gives back to the community, who followed every single rule, obtained every permit, jumped through every hoop, but is receiving code enforcement notices this week and being harassed from the owners who cannot handle the competition. So at what point is council going to finally address this cronyism issue? It's not a parking problem, it's a pay-to-play problem.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment tonight? Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Simone, and I'm the owner of the Yardley Town Center. I'd like to just follow up with Mr. Perlmutter. She did pretty well at the beginning, not so great at the end, when she talks about the problem being more deeper than just a parking problem and an enforcement problem, and one which has roots in the way that they grant variances in the town. So the Kauai Tory people obtained a variance in my shopping center to open a new restaurant in an environment where most of the stores will be closed when this restaurant is in full operation. That's not true of La La Lobster. They have 4 parking places and 96 seats. So that's where Mrs. Perlmutter has this whole thing wrong. It has nothing to do with women's own business or any such thing. I like the other gentleman's idea about a task force. Over 30 years I've owned the shopping center. I've probably been on 5 task forces that tried to identify this problem and deal with it. Not one of them was successful, and for a variety of reasons, but they all just were not effective in coming up with solutions. I don't think that the capital expenditure is probably a good solution. It's not going to work at any level, and it could be done privately if it's done properly. I think that this is too big of a discussion to have a forum like this. It probably needs a special meeting. So we've been a pretty good neighbor in this town, but But there are issues that go far beyond whether or not I should or could provide parking for people who don't have it. And where somebody buys a piece of property that has 4-car parking and expects to accommodate 96 seats in that facility. So this is going to go a lot deeper than a discussion we can have tonight. So if you would like to set up special meetings, we'd be happy to participate. There are liability issues involved with people parking on private property, and nobody addresses that problem. So I would encourage you to perhaps set up special meetings if that's where the Economic Development Authority we would like to participate in that to try to come up with a solution, because this is going to constantly get worse. We've had vacancies in our shopping center for more than 3 years. The good news is today we're full, and we have people who want to come to our shopping center where we have no space. And now that that shopping center is full, it's even more important that I protect the tenants who are paying rent, and a lot of rent, to have that accommodation. It's one of the best features that we have in that shopping center, aside from being in downtown Yardley Borough. So I don't have more to say about that, but any future meetings that you think are appropriate, we would participate.
Thank you. I'm hesitant to talk more about parking, but I'm going to do this for just a moment. The borough has in the past tried to be helpful in resolving disputes that occur between private parties. And what we learned is that no good deed goes unpunished. We are not going to do that here. What goes on between one business and another business entity, we're not part of, we're not going to be part of. We will have a conversation about parking as it affects the borough as a whole, as it relates to our ordinances, as it relates to whatever creative solution may come up. But we are not going to get involved in dispute resolution. It is a black hole. We have been down it one too many times, and I beg you, for my sanity, please do not let this become the thing that we have public comment about every single meeting from now until the end of time. Is there other public comment tonight? Going once, going twice. Hearing none, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Next item is consideration of the consent agenda. Items A through C, those include the minutes for our July 20th meeting, the bills list for today, August 3rd, and the banner permit for the Harvest Day. Would any member of council like one of these items to be considered separately?
David, would you mind doing the minutes separately since I wasn't here?
We can do the minutes separately, so therefore is there a motion for approval of items B and C on the consent agenda? Motion was made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Any comments from council? Anything from the public? Mr. Wayne?
Yearly Harvest Day, make sure
Can you just, so we get your sound on the mic?
Yeah, I'd make one change on the date the sign will come down. International Peace Day is half an hour, that is the 21st, so the soonest it can come down is the 22nd.
All right, sorry, I'm searching for it, the original date range.
I think the original date range was the Monday after, which would have been the 20th. 19th, 20th.
So we're just going 2 more days.
Yeah, it has to be, because I always forget that International Peace Day is always the 21st.
All right, any objections to amending item C to go to the 22nd?
Paula, do we have any other banners?
All right, with no objections, let's consider that amended. Any other comments on items B and C? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Carries 6-0. Let's return to item A, that's approval of the minutes for July 20th. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion is made by Ms. Seaver Morris, seconded by Mr. Ross. Any comments or discussion from council? Any from the public?
Did we just do the bills list?
We did just do the bills list, and I was saying we're now on the minutes. Anything from the public? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's me. That motion carries 6-0 with one abstention. Moving on now to Chief Kelly's report. We've obviously been through our hires, but if you have other items to report on tonight.
Just a monthly service statistics, sir, thank you. For July 2021, the police department responded to 554 calls for service. We issued 77 moving traffic citations. We issued 1 non-traffic citation, investigated 7 motor vehicle accidents, and made 5 arrests, 2 of which were for DUI. And that completes my reports.
Thank you. Let's council, any questions for council on the report? Ms. Carolina.
Thank you. I have a public safety issue. Public safety is the #1 priority for government. We're 1 square mile, have, 14 police officers, 10 auxiliary, I'm not sure, the 4 police vehicles. We had a tornado heading our way. There were people completely unaware dining in outdoor restaurants. I know the chief is, lives in northern New Jersey, and the manager was on vacation. But I was just wondering if we could have some kind of public safety plan, which includes the residents, somehow notifying the residents. The mayor, who is an auxiliary officer, posted on his Facebook page that you were texting each other 70 times, but there was nothing that went out officially to any of the residents. We used to have a robocall system. We have the mail list, and it was really serious. I mean, people were literally still dining in restaurants. So I just think we need to re-examine the public safety. I know our emergency manager is also the code enforcement officer, also a full-time something else. So I just think that was a really big deal, and that we need to have something that actually interacts with the residents. Maybe the residents can contact someone, because nobody really knew. There was nothing even on the Yardley website page. So again, I just think we need to work on that.
Thank you. I think that's probably something we should look at. I know that there are systems in place at the county level for text alerts. And the challenge with a lot of these things is that they are opt-in, and we are constrained by that often.
But just for the record, sir, there was broadcasts on the Yardley Borough Police Facebook page.
Yes,
I of this storm, because it came on so quickly. We were in contact with emergency management, was in contact with the county. Well, anything that could be done was being done in preparation for this. But put on the record, there was broadcast on our Facebook page.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you just indicated, ma'am, that there wasn't, so I wanted to correct the record.
Right. And we were, I should have mentioned, we were putting that out on all the channels we have. I think the question is, can we find more channels? And if so, would they increase our reach? I know that we've looked at these text alert systems before, and the barrier is always the opt-in. It's only as good as your list. If we can't get a better list, is that really going to be better than Facebook? It becomes one more thing to do when we're handling a situation. So worthy of consideration, but no clear answer.
Everyone who has a smartphone that was GPS and zip code should have received an alert that there was a tornado going on. So if you didn't, or if you
Mine
got
didn't
it
stop.
and you hit ignore, can't help with that.
That is fair. All right, any other items, Chief? Your
No,
report.
sir,
All
my
right,
report.
concluded there.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's close that item out. We'll move to our manager for your report.
I have a couple items tonight. The first thing I have is I'm asking council's permission to request bids to digitize our records. As everybody knows, all of our filing cabinets and everything in this building are rusted down the seams. We can't fit any more file cabinets in there. I had a company come out. Their name is Scantech, to give us a custom proposal. They looked at all of our files, they looked in our file room, they did an analysis of files from anywhere, so if we have another incident like COVID and we're working from home or weather or somebody's sick, we can still access property files or any kind of financial records or anything. Would help with right to knows as well. Scantech gave a great proposal, it's something that we've looked at for many years, but it was over the threshold for bidding. So I would like to ask council's permission to go out and get bids so that we could move forward to get this done. And where we would find the money to pay for this, we are doing very well with sales of property, and this would help pay for this unbudgeted item. Business privilege taxes are up, building permits are up, so we will have a little bit of excess to help cushion a little bit of the cost for most of it, all of it, really.
Do we hear a motion to that effect? All right, sorry, Mr. Fine, let me see if we can get a motion first.
Yeah, I will make a motion to prepare a proposal for formal bidding for the digitalization of Yardley Borough records.
Second.
Motion is made by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Ross. Now let's open it up for discussion from council. Mr. Finer.
Yes, thank you. Paul, I think it's a great idea to digitize the records. We talked about it for so long. I know you're going to put this out to bid, which is good because there are some red flags on the Scantech proposal that I just want to call to your attention as you get this. One thing is anybody who does this for us, they need to be in PDF format, and they should probably be stored on probably on our existing server. I don't know how much space we have, but they don't take a lot of space in PDF. The reason is because we don't want to be locked into any of these companies, where they're making their money. If you look at the proposal, they want $1,200 a year for 200 gigabytes of cloud storage. That is an outrageous amount of money. That is more than 10 times the amount of money that costs if you buy it directly from Google. And it's very reliable cloud storage. Then they want $3,100 a year for annual support and maintenance. That's crazy because you're talking about documents that are just need to be organized in a way that you can find them and scan. You don't need their support to open a PDF. So I encourage, and I'm happy to help you as they come in if you want to just go over them, but just to ask them as you get the proposals, not to sell you with various systems they have big profit at the expense of Yardley Borough taxpayers. Other than that, I totally support what you want to do. I think it's smart. It has to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Finer. I echo some of your thoughts there in terms of line items on this bid. I think there's some areas where they could sharpen the pencils a little bit. Certainly, though, when it comes to file formatting, I know that many property records deal in PDF-As, and we will just need to be mindful as we transition from paper to digital records that we are complying with all of the record retention laws that are in place. I know a lot of governments didn't think a whole lot about this because when it was a piece of paper in a file cabinet, that met the requirement. As we move to digital, there are a few other things we need to worry about. So we'll just need to check whatever the state code would be on the records retention. I know that some different document types have different requirements, so we just want to make sure that we hit all of those, in addition to having a good way to manage these files and retrieve them. As Paula mentioned, this helps tremendously with Right to Know, where we can sort of just look up the document name and pull it right away rather than having to sift through files. Any other questions or comments from council on that? Ms. Taylor, we'll move to the public. Okay.
Do you have a request for proposal prepared where you have mutually agreed upon specifications for the service?
Not at this time. I think that's what we're looking for authorization to put together. So we'll probably need to come back here before we press go on the bid.
Because that's the only way you're going to ensure apples to apples.
Right, and this, by way of background, came about, it was something we were looking at, the scope grew, the cost grew, And then we said, oh, wait a minute, we're going to be over the bid threshold, so we need to do this through a much more formalized channel. Ms. Perlmutter, then David.
Yes, I'm a little concerned with the way Manager Johnson described that. I'm concerned with security issues. And the way she just described that, so her and Patty and Wes will be able to work from this at home if they need to. These are confidential documents, a lot of them. We've had tremendous problems with confidentiality before with Manager Johnson. So I think you really need to have some protocols in place for security. You can't just have access on your home computer and everybody else has access. I don't even know why our code enforcement officer would need access to all of these files. So I'm a little concerned with how that was described. And if you do get these bids, I think you need to have security protocols being part of the request for proposal.
Thank you. Not sure what we're talking about with the privacy incidents in the past, but okay. And certainly we are mindful of security as we make these transitions. They are all public records. You know, there's obviously some exceptions. Banking documents, if they were released, they would be redacted. But yes, that's all going to be part of a process like this. Lots of people work from home and lots of people do it securely. I think everyone in this room probably has that experience. We will make sure it's done right. Mr. Appleby.
I was going to yield to the mayor. He had his hand up.
Thank you. President Bria addressed my concerns in his comments.
I just want to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That guy from 39 Breach Drive, David Applebaum, as a IT, cybersecurity and compliance professional, which is how I spend my day. I applaud the idea of scanning these records, and of course it is a good idea. It is safe, and I just want to encourage a couple things. PDFs should be searchable PDFs. There's a different type of scanning method that allows it to be searchable by anything or any kinds of parameters, ands or ors as an example. So that would be very beneficial, especially if you're trying to pinpoint what you're looking for. The second thing I heard was that this, to save money to, instead of giving them the contract to store and manage and, maintain it for, was it $1,200, I believe? That may end up being worthwhile, because as it is in my business, I charge people to maintain and manage and make sure that their documents are safe. Under the compliance issue, which I think we're mixing terms here, security and compliance. Security is a different, cybersecurity and compliance are two different things. So let me take the compliance for a second. So as I'm not sure what compliance mandates you're under, or if you're under any that the solicitor might know, but it's not important, because you know what, best practices is the most important thing. And if you follow best practices, then you'll be compliant and you'll be secure. So as far as compliance and people working from home, well, this is a new way of life. But I would recommend that the equipment that they use be purchased by the borough and belong to the borough, and you should have a AUP, or acceptable use policy, so that those people using that piece of equipment are under the guidelines and rules of your organization, just like I recommend to many of my clients. As far as security and compliance together, one thing I would ask you to look at is the vendor agreement, because there is a thing called vendor management. And vendor management talks about whether the people that you are contracting are actually compliant on their end. You may be compliant, but maybe someone on the other end may be taking liberties or working with a disgruntled employee that will make it non-compliant. So I can give you this information as a private citizen, not as my company, because because I think it's important for you to know this. And finally, as far as security, in this day and age, if we are not talking about saving data to the cloud, which is, somewhere, really, we've had cloud for decades. Email is a cloud service, and we've had that for 30-plus years. So this idea of things going to this magical place called the cloud is not so magical. What it is a server farm that is somewhere and may be replicated in another location. So the idea that it's not safe is not entirely true, as long as you understand who you are contracted with and that they are following the best practices.
Thank you. I'm gonna,
May I make one last thing about such?
no, I'm gonna call time.
Sure.
I'm gonna call time on this because
If you
we
need
are,
more information, please contact
we are
me.
getting far down into the weeds, and these are questions that are going to be very appropriate when we start to move forward on this project. But I think at this point in
Thank you for your
time,
consideration.
this level of detail is probably not quite warranted yet. Any other public comment on the proposal? Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Okay, the next thing I have is our building code official. Over the past year and a half, I started to receive some complaints, not only from residents, but from some council members and some contractors and builders as well, about our current building code guide. I feel we have some million-dollar projects that are coming down the pike this year, next year, into next year as well, probably with elevations, and I just didn't have the confidence with our current gentleman. So I contacted Bucks County Consortium, asked the membership how they handle this position. Some people have full-time building code officials in-house every day. Others use different vendors such as Keystone, Barry ISET, our current one was VIU. So I asked for proposals from two of the vendors. Keystone didn't respond at all. I talked to the gentleman and I emailed him numerous times. Barry ISET, I had them in the office. They gave us a proposal, which is pretty much the same as what we have right now. So I am asking council to move forward and accept the proposal to hire Barry ISET to be our code official, our building code official for the borough.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Ross. I'll kick off discussion of this item. Do we have any entanglements exiting our current contract, BIU?
We don't have a actual written contract, it was just continued.
I know he bills for current services, so we don't have a,
So I was going to ask that we retain them just for about a week or so that they could close out anything that we've already paid them to do, so they could close out any of those things, and then Barry ISET will take over.
and transitioning to Barry Isaac, are we committing to a term length with them, or are they just gonna bill as work is given to them?
They will bill as work is given to them. It'll be a 50-50 split.
What is that mean? What is 50/50?
When you go for a building permit.
Oh, between us, okay, got it. Have we used them in the past?
Their current zoning.
Okay, that's why I recognize Mike. So they do zoning, they'll also now do code.
Correct me if I'm wrong, these services are generally paid for by the fees.
Yeah.
Right, so this is not a direct line item to the borough. Any other comments, questions from council? Turn over to the public. Ms. Perlmutter.
This is the first time I'm hearing this, and with all of the zoning and building code problems that we've had, I think it's not a good idea to have the zoning officer and the building code officer from the same company, especially with the history of what Barry ISET has done with the tannery and with other issues Why would we want to bring them in for building? I think it's really important to separate the two, because now it's just going to be one signing off on the other, and I've been here for years, how many years, telling you about code and
A lot.
building officials. Finally, I'm so happy you're finally getting rid of the current building official who's been the source of a number of issues. And I'm glad we got rid of the zoning officer before the current one. But I really think it's a good idea to have them from two different places, just so that.
I tried. BIU has no one else to send us. Keystone did not respond. There's nothing more we can do.
Do you want us to see the firms?
I'm sure there's other firms, there can be individuals. Just to limit it, that's, I think we should keep looking, and I really think it's important to separate it, especially with pending lawsuits and everything else that's going on, that we absolutely need to separate these two things.
Anything else from the public? One more time, this is a big switch. Anything else from council? All right, hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Are there any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries without objection.
The next item I have is our beloved budget calendar that needs adoption by council. So we're starting the budget preparation. Patty and I actually already started this already. 2022 is going to be here before you know it. Carolina and me are all happy about it. But so before you, I have our budget calendar that will lay out the dates, everything that's going to be required for the next couple of months in order to get our next budget.
All right, do we hear a motion regarding the budget calendar?
So I will make a motion to adopt the 2022 budget preparation budget calendar as presented.
All right, motion was made by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Ross. Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Anything from the public? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
And that is all I have.
Right, thank you. Turn over to Ms. Coletti.
In light of the time, in regards to updates, I don't have anything different than what is in the report that was provided, unless anybody has any specific questions.
Looks like not.
Okay, and then same with the individual projects, nothing different than what's in the report. So I would like to get right to the motion that we have for the sidewalk project. All right, the motion needed would be to move forward with the application process for the PennDOT TASA. It is not a grant, it is federal funding. It only covers construction, but it covers 100% of it if you end up being awarded the project. Oftentimes, when applying for this type of funding, municipalities will be warned that you are subject to all of the PennDOT's regulations. However, Main Street is already a PennDOT road, and you're already subject to PennDOT's regulations. So utilizing this funding should not add any additional requirements for us. So the idea is to apply for North Main Street sidewalk phase 3 to take us out to Joliet.
All right, is there a motion regarding the TASA application?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Ms. Siegel Morris. Any comments or questions from council? Any from the public? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. That's it. All right, thank you, Ms. Coletti. Mr. Griffin, do we have any solicitor report?
No report this evening.
Thank you, that makes it nice and easy. Mayor Harding.
No report this evening.
Council member reports. Mr. Kirkland?
No report.
Mr. Ross?
No.
Thank liking this. Ms. Siegel Morris?
No report.
I've got nothing. Ms. Thompson? Mr. McCann?
Keep it going, no report.
Mr. Finer?
No report.
Just like that. All right, next up, discussion items. Does anyone on council have just a general item they'd like to raise for preliminary discussion? We've done a lot of that tonight, so I'm hoping not. Right, nothing. And last but not least, under other business, we have decision of appeal of the zoning hearing board decision regarding the tap room. Been a lot of debate in this particular chamber about that decision, both with the zoning hearing board and here at council, public comment. So at this time is when council needs to sort of make the final decision on this. The council in matters like this has 30 days to make an appeal from the time that the zoning hearing board issues the written decision, which in this case was to grant the variance for the restaurant up at the Tannery, the tap room location. I think council has probably thought about this issue a lot. I know that we had some lively discussion about it in executive session. I personally have thought about it a lot, and for me, it comes down to this, and everybody else is going to get a chance to speak, so I'm not speaking for the entirety of council at this point, which is that it's not about the business, because it is a wonderful business that is up there. Decisions like this are about the long-term planning and implications of zoning. Yardley has changed a lot in the last 10 years, and I believe it is going to change a lot in the next 10 years. We need to plan for that, and that's why tonight I will be the one to make the motion to appeal the variance granted by the zoning hearing board. I will ask for a second. If there's none, the motion dies. So is there a second? Hearing none, there's nothing to debate. We will move on. At this point, we do have an executive session scheduled for the evening. It is in regards to the collective bargaining agreement that we are negotiating with our full-time police officers. The current agreement expires at the end of 2021. So we're hoping to get something in place before the agreement expires. There will be no vote. Our session is purely informational for council. At this time, is there a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Motion adjourned.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Person Korea, you know, Chief has to.
Yes, yes, I do.